my privilege to invite our second speaker, Mr. Eytan Schwartz, CEO of Tel Aviv Global, a municipal initiative aimed at positioning Tel Aviv as a global city. Tel Aviv is today one of the world's leading ecosystems for technological startups and enjoys the highest rate of startups per capita or per square mile outside of Silicon Valley. The task of Mr. Schwartz and his team is to elevate the city's global standings and leverage its brand name to promote international economic development, international visitors, and international media exposure. Over to Mr. Eytan Schwartz.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Eytan Schwartz. I just traveled 4,000 kilometers to come here, and I want to thank you for inviting me. I'm very humbled. I was asked to speak about inspirational ideas. I've been here for one day. Your city and your country is extremely inspirational, so with all modesty, what you have here at home is the biggest inspiration I've ever seen. And the second thing I'd like to say is, I was asked to speak about Tel Aviv as a smart city, and also being humble. Tel Aviv is not a smart city. Tel Aviv is as stupid as any other city. There are some smart practices we have, and one of them in particular sparked some interest in the world about 2 years ago, when in the Smart City Conference in Barcelona, our city won the first prize. So I want to introduce this product, and we'll talk a bit about it, because really it's where technology meets human behavior, and we're very proud of what we achieved. So I'll start with a short video. This is a product called Digital Tel Aviv. Please.
Welcome to Tel Aviv, Israel's energetic and youthful heartbeat. A coastal metropolitan that never sleeps. A city deserving of the next step in municipal services and communication. Digital. A personalized interest. Digital. A new kind of urban experience.
I want to start talking to you and tell you a bit about the city of Tel Aviv, which I come from. I'll tell you a bit about Tel Aviv as a smart city, and then a bit about our future. I love starting with history. This is what the city looked like about 107 years ago. Tel Aviv was founded in 1909. We'll discuss the startup culture in the city, but we like to think of the city as the first startup in the city itself. It was founded by 66 dreamers that bought a plot of sand dunes very close to the Mediterranean shore, and they had a dream of founding a modern metropolis in the heart of a place that had no running water and had no electricity. And today, in 2017, this is what the exact spot that they stood at looks today. This is the financial center of Israel, the cultural center of Israel, the heart of the city of Tel Aviv. As was mentioned in the introduction, one of the most important engines of our economy is the fact that we are a very, very technological hub. Israel is known as the startup nation. You might have heard that term, the startup nation. There's a lot of technology in Israel, and as it happens in many countries, technology begins in the major city. So we enjoy a proliferation of startup companies, probably the highest per capita in the world. The mayor of Tel Aviv is always asked why this city has managed to attract so many startup companies. What do we do to attract technological people? So the answer is we don't do anything to attract technological people. What we try to do is create the most fun city that we can, and creative people follow. So we are known as the Mediterranean capital of cool by the New York Times. We have a very high number of bars and pubs that unfortunately at my age and marital status I don't enjoy, but many residents do. Israelis in general are known as very daring. We're a very equal society. We don't have barriers between people. We're not afraid to approach other people. We're not afraid to speak to people. What is known in Hebrew as chutzpah, we are very, very blunt, and we speak directly with people. That's very good for a startup culture. We're a very young city. For a Western city, the number of young people is very, very high, probably the youngest city in the European sphere. 1/3 of our residents are between the ages of 18 and 35, and this is thanks to a series of policies that attracts young people to the city, and it's a very vibrant one. Now, Professor Richard Florida, if you know him, who's an urbanist, he spoke about the 3 T's that attract creative people to cities. One is technology. So we have technology in Israel, and it's concentrated in cities. So it's concentrated in Tel Aviv. The second T is talent. A lot of talented people in the city, but most importantly, how do we create platforms to allow talented people to be creative? How do we make it more accessible for them to be creative? How do we allow this one guy who came to City Hall and says, you have just installed a multi-million-dollar escalator system, and it resembles a cartoon to me, and I would like to paint paintings on it so that when the escalators go up, you'll see animation. What do you do with a young, crazy artist like that? It took the municipality weeks to approve it. Finally, we approved it. We said we're going to take it down after a month. It's been there for 5 years. People come to the municipality just to see this. And it's an example of being able to listen to artists in the city and allow them to create when they want to create and use the municipal platforms, which, by the way, they own because it's their tax-paying money that's paying for it, right? The third T, which is very, very important, is tolerance. And tolerance in the region I come from, in the Middle East, is not a very, very clear-cut thing. The fact that you allow every type of person to express themselves, that you allow minorities to feel part of the city, that you allow every part of the society to feel at home is something which unfortunately in the Middle East is not necessarily synonymous with everyday life, and this is something that the city of Tel Aviv values very much. It's home to every minority in Israel, and we hope that everybody feels at home. So talent, technology, tolerance, those are the 3 T's for a creative city. Now let's talk about why the city has some smart practices, and we just showed you probably the most important one. About a decade ago, the city began writing a strategic plan. It was the first time the city said, okay, what's our vision? One of the people in the former panel spoke about a vision. What is the vision? First, let's decide what we want in the future of this city, and then we'll create policies to implement. So there were 4 pillars. One was that we would be an economic and cultural center, a city for all residents, a citizen-oriented governance, and an attractive urban environment. That pretty much covers it all, but that sets a set of guidelines for the city planners and for city policymakers, kind of like the torch that we all follow. So we developed a whole lot of smart practices as a result. If you look at the policies that fit these 4 pillars, you see a lot of stuff that at the end of the day were created to be more efficient, to give better services to our residents for a lower price. In many cases, we have typical smart city projects. I know in India you are talking a lot about smart cities today. I can't say that we excel on most things. We're pretty much like a lot of other cities in some things, and some other things we fall behind. We are pretty good at the things, like always, where you have to be perfect. One is readiness. As you know, in our region, we have to be ready for all kinds of violence, unfortunately, be it terrorism or war. So our control room is a pretty sophisticated one, and it uses pretty sophisticated analytics to kind of like analyze what's going on in the city. And a lot of people come from all around the world to learn from our systems, and we're pretty proud of that. Another thing we're pretty good at, and again because of necessity, is our smart irrigation. We have very little water in Israel, and we're very proud of the fact that every year we have more and more green space in the city of Tel Aviv, yet we use less and less water every year. So we managed to perfect the usage of water really to every last drop, and this is something that we just had to do because we don't have enough water. But when you think about it, and this is the breakthrough, you can buy technology and you can install irrigation, but what every city is unique about is what it knows about its own residents, what it knows about its people. And this is where we get to the main point of my discussion, which is how do you create civic engagement platforms through technology? This, for us, is the practice that we are most proud of. So let's go back a stop. There are 3 ways of looking at how we can create smart practices in a municipality. The first basic level is the government to government, and I'll explain. And then you go from government to citizens, and the utopian model that we hope one day to reach is creating platforms, smart platforms, that citizens relate to citizens without no interference from the government. But let's talk about government to government. This is an example of the silos that we have in the municipality. Many municipalities have these silos. You have the people in the parking department. They plan the parking system, they plan the signs, they install the signs, they regulate the parking. Take a look to the right-hand side. You have public health, you have welfare, you have culture, you have business. All of these people are doing their daily tasks. Does any person in one silo know what the other person in another silo is doing? In most cases, they probably don't know what their own colleagues are doing. How do you create a culture when everybody can know what's going on within the government? Let's talk about government officials to begin with. How do we know what our colleagues are doing? Do we need to know everything? How do we select the information? This is what we call knowledge management, and we started it about a decade ago. Again, this was not thinking about smart city practices. This was just thinking about how to better manage the city. So the key for this is sharing. How do you get people to share their information? How do you get people to realize that sharing their information is an asset, that they're not giving up something by handing over their information, they're empowering themselves, and of course empowering their colleagues by doing so. So we came up with a set of tools. Municipal procedures, let's write them down. Work plans, let's all write our work plans in the same format. Guidelines for how to give services, let's all write those down. And we'll empower our municipal workers on the way. Remember these faces, I'll get back to them later. So this is what we document. Look on the left-hand side. This is pretty obvious, right? The municipal committees meeting, when city council meets, we write it down. We put it online. Municipal procedures, municipal forms. That's pretty obvious. Take a look on the right-hand side. Tips of employees, new ideas of workers. We start writing down everything in basic formats, and we create a body of work which we then make public. We have 2,200 call scripts for people that call in to receive service from the municipality. That's a lot of work. And it took us a decade to get the employees to understand that this is not just creating more paperwork. At the end of the day, we'll make their job better and easier. The next stage was to set up dozens of internal portals. Each department in the city has its own internal portal where all these documents are available. So for instance, when I come back home from this trip to India, I will file a report. Where I spent my time, who I met with, what I did during each meeting. This will become part of this portal of our international relations division. Everybody in the city can read what I did here during my 3 days in India. I'm sharing my information, so that does two things. First of all, I make sure that I'm working and not having a good time. Well, I did have a good time at the Taj Mahal yesterday, but that was at my own spare time. I'm not just here in India to have a good time. I'm here to do work. I know that people will be reading what I did. And the second thing is, this creates a body of knowledge that everybody in the municipality can tap into. So we covered 8,000 employees, and we created an amazing body of work, and everybody knows what everybody else is doing, and we thought that we solved the problem. We came up with a wonderful municipality that was very, very effective, and Tel Aviv became greener and cleaner and more effective in how it runs its business. And then what happened? One of the things the city does all the time is monitor its own work. We do surveys, we do focus groups. So 2010, 2011, there was a groundbreaking focus group that the management all got to see from the other side of the one-sided glass. Here's what it turns out. Tel Avivians love the city and hate City Hall. They love the city, but they hate the bureaucrats that are running the city. Everything that's good in the city is thanks to the residents. Everything that's bad, it's our fault, right? So when there's congestion, it's because we're running the lights poorly, but when it flows, they've had luck. And when the day's clear, it's from God, but when it's polluted, it's our fault. And when the teacher's great, the teacher's great, but when she's not great, the city doesn't know how to select its teachers. So we found that our residents love living in the city, but they don't associate what happens in the city to the people that run the city. So all this information we gathered, we start making it transparent. We create online services like many other cities. And then we realize we have to go to the next phase of government to citizens. We have to give the citizens information of things that concern them, because even though the information is all on the municipal site, they're not accessing it. They have no way of going through thousands and thousands of pages to know what's going on in the city, right? In every important moment of our citizens' lives, we are there. We're there when they're born. We're there when they get their first baby care. We're there when they go to kindergarten, when they go to school, and so on and so forth. We're there in every junction, and we know a lot about our citizens. So how do we create a system that integrates everything we know about the city and everything we know about our citizens? How do we bring those two together? How do we go from being reactive to proactive to intelligently active? If you come to us and ask for a form, we'll give you that form. That's reactive. How do we make that proactive? We put it on the website. How do we make it intelligently active? How do we make sure that you only get the form you need and you're not bothered with anything else? So that's what we just showed in that short video, and I'll try to explain it very, very simply. It's a service, a digital service, that gives you personalized city information, benefits, and e-services. E-services, that's pretty obvious. It's the link between information and benefits. What we say to our citizens is as follows. You give us information about yourselves, we in return will give you benefits and the information that you need to know from City Hall. For an example, I didn't time this, I swear to God. About 2 hours ago, I received a text message that I can buy cheap tickets for a theatrical production for about $10 instead of $50. That is because they know where I live and they know I love theater, because I gave them that information. I get an email when my kid has to register for kindergarten, when there's a roundtable discussing city policy. Even when we budget community projects, we give the residents the possibility, if they want to take part in the budgeting process. We give them benefits, like free entries to swimming pools and all kinds of other stuff. And there's a personal area. So at the end of the day, with multiple channels of communication, we tell our residents what we know that they want to know. We don't bother them with anything else that they don't want to know. And they feel very special because they're getting treatment from the municipality on things that are of concern to them. If somebody's not of an elder age, they don't care about what we're doing in that field. They care about what's happening with the kids, and vice versa. All kinds of unexpected services, like very cheap chairs on the beach, which is something that people are concerned about. We've gone to sharing public resources. If the community center has an empty room and you want to run a birthday party there, you can use it. So we're helping, this system helps us to reuse city allocation and resources in a more efficient way. I'll say a word about the future. We're thinking about a city coin or other types of alternative currencies. You give me 2 hours of your work and I'll give you 2 hours of my work using the city platform without the interference of the city. And finally, one thing that we launched a month ago, and which is pretty funny, after we created Digitel, we created DigiDog. Tel Aviv has the highest rate of dogs per capita probably in any city. We love our dogs. And if you register your dog to this service, we will send you text messages on special events for dogs, on special vaccination days for dogs. To launch this service, we had a screening. If you know, there's a Hollywood movie called The Secret Lives of Pets. It's a 3D movie about pets. So we invited people and their dogs to the movie, and they sat down with glasses, both the people and the dogs, and they watched the movie. And it sounds funny, but in the city, we care a lot about our dogs. And this is a way that we managed to reach out to a very important community in the city using a technological device. And we're talking about how to do it for tourists as well. I want to say one word, because this is not a technological project, this is a human resources project. How do we do all of this? Remember I told you about the portals. There are 300 people in the municipality that serve as what we call knowledge champions. And what they do is, in addition to their daily work, and they're not being paid for this, they put information into a central portal about everything important that's happening in their department. So if the sanitation department, for instance, is going to be shut down tomorrow, they put it through a portal. If somebody's road is going to be blocked off, they put it in the portal. And then there's a few people that decipher that information and send it out to the various residents. So we have these 300 people essentially doing a job which is not their job, and they do it because the pride they have in their city and them wanting to give a better service to the residents. It's not a costly project, and our residents feel great because they're receiving, again, the benefits they want. Right now, by the way, we're partnering with 2 cities here in India, the city of Thane, which is implementing a sort of this service, and the city of Pune, which we're also cooperating with on issues of smart cities. And I'm very thankful for inviting me here today. Thank you for listening, and I wish you guys all the best. Thank you.